Hello, hello. Welcome. I love seeing a couple familiar faces and names. Angela, always good to see you. I am not going to let note takers in. I apologize in advance, but we're going to provide transcripts, recordings. If you've ever been to one of my things before, I always give you every bit of the resources and especially all of you because I know that whatever I teach you today, you're going to go and use. So I want to make sure that you have slides, resources, recordings, and all of that's going to be available to you. We're just going to give it like one more minute and then we're going to jump right in since all of you showed up on time. And I want to make sure that we have as much time as possible to ask questions and go back and forth a little bit about these topics. I want you to note there's someone named Melissa Martini here, and her picture is yellow. If you have any questions about, like, my sound's not working, I can't see something, please talk directly to Melissa because unless something goes wrong in front of my face, I'm probably not going to notice it. So start with Melissa and then we'll work from there. Okay. And if you need any link, if you're like, I didn't get that last link, Melissa can share that with you again in the chat. All right. And we're going to use the chat to talk back and forth today. Give it just one more minute. You are more than welcome to be on camera. You're more than welcome not to be. I really, really appreciate people who are willing to be brave on camera because it helps me not feel like I'm talking to myself in a room, which, it's a little more than a job. Part of the job, I guess. Right. All right, everyone. Let me get these windows arranged. And like I said, we are going to jump in. Oh, I get it. No chewing. I get it. I get it, Angela. All good. All right, folks. So if you're hearing me make random references to people, it's because they're talking in the chat. So make sure you have that chat window open. It's a good way to just keep this a lively conversation because I very intentionally kept this small. You are surrounded by people like you who are also interested in helping students. And I want you to, as much as I want to get to know all of you, I want you to get to know each other. And the chat's going to be the best way to do that. And if you're like, who is this cat person? Welcome. My name is Kat Kibben. My pronouns are they, them. I run a company called 3earsmedia, and I am a speaker. And typically, what I'm doing on a day like today is working directly with recruiters. So, what I do by day is process consulting, really helping them refine their hiring process. And my expertise is specifically in the job posting and how we hire the right person. How that translates here is because I do a lot of advisory work with HR technology companies and companies that are doing this hiring, is that I kind of have that behind the scenes view of what's really happening when they are making selection, how people stand out. And I believe with my whole chest that that's something we should be sharing with people like you. You know, I was just talking to Melissa before we let everyone in and started this webinar about how this is one of those time periods where it feels different than job search has for a really long time. And I say this as someone who has been in the industry of recruiting now since 2007. I was Monster.com's very first social media hire. That's my claim to fame. My job title was a social media ninja, back when job titles were cool, if you want to give that range of making me sound really old. But I make that point because I want to point out the dynamics that are changing because a lot of the advice that we used to give is now hurting people. And we're also seeing all of these headlines and changes. And I just want to tell you like it is. Because, when I think back on my job search, and I'm not sure, I would love to hear in the chat kind of what you're seeing too, is like when when I was looking for a job around 2006, 7, right? That first decade of the 2000s, it was an administrative issue, right? Like finding a job felt like an administrative challenge. I had to get the nice paper. I'm seeing the nods. You know what I'm talking about, right? We had to get the nice paper. We had to have a nice suit. We couldn't have said anything crazy on the internet, right? We were just kind of like creating this perception of who we are. The linen resume paper, I still have a box of that downstairs. I found it the other day. I think I might use it for some crafting, right? Right. But it felt doable, even if you had never done it before. I grew up in a family where my parents were military. Everyone else who was not military in my family, they were teachers. I Getting into corporate America was an anomaly, but it felt doable because I felt like I just had to follow the steps, and the steps felt pretty linear. Today, I feel like these students are battling an emotional challenge as much as they are battling the logistics. That there's a weight that I feel when I'm talking to these students. And I also feel it when I'm talking to other job seekers who have experience. I think this is a collective emotion, is that the light at the end of the tunnel feels harder to see. I found this stat and I shared it both because I think it points to how pervasive it is, but it's kind of laughable to me, right? They said that 68% of students are anxious about AI. And I was like, okay, that's, you're laughing. I see you laughing because it's like one of those Glassdoor stats where you're like, "What? No, that's 100%. Just say it. 100%. We are anxious and they're worried about if the job even exists. I think what that brings out in people is that they feel like they have to make the right choice. And they are going to constantly go out of their way to seek advice, and it makes the advice more believable, even if it's not right. I think it also, makes your job a little harder because now you have to sort through all the advice. And we have these little LLMs trying to tell you what the right answer is. You have what you know to be true as contrast. And then we have an ever evolving market where things are rapidly changing, where we have a 6% unemployment rate for this generation. The odds are more challenging. And that is why I'm hosting this conversation today. If you weren't here when we started, it's like, I want you to just see what I've seen. I want you to see what I've learned from these HR technology companies, because they're literally calling me, asking me for advice on these topics. And simultaneously, I'm getting questions from students when I'm going into these speaking engagements where they're like, why am I getting ghosted? Why don't they reply? Does anyone even see this? And if I can help one person feel less panicked as they go into this, it's worth doing. And so I want to give you all of that information. This is going to be an interactive conversation, like I said. I want you to use the chat and let's chat. But before we even get to all of those things, let me be so explicit when I say thank you so much. Most people don't choose a career path where their majority responsibility is helping. And I'm so grateful for people like you. I am so grateful that you take the time to answer those questions thoughtfully, that you take the time to go to sessions like this and learn and not just assume that there's one right way, that you are open, that you plan events where students can have access to other people and grow. And if you have not heard it this week, this month, this year, last year, gratitude is limited sometimes. Let me just be the voice that will tell you so explicitly, I am so grateful that people like you exist. Thank you. All right. And with that said, when I know people are doing great work, I'm always happy to be a resource. And for those of you who joined late, my name is Kat. I'm your host today to guide us through all of this. By day, I mostly spend my time working with recruiters on how they build a hiring process, how we get it right. My specialty is in job postings. So if you came here with any burning questions about a job post, what it really means, write that down. We will have a significant Q&A portion, don't you worry. But on the other side, I try to spend my time teaching people what I figure out, what I know works, whether that's working with recruiters and giving them best practice advice, or going onto college and career campuses and talking to students about what I do and what I've learned. You'll catch on very quickly that I'm in number one, I care about real talk. I care about telling people the truth. Because the reality here is that giving you the wrong information it becomes an extension and it hurts a lot of people. So you'll always get 100% honesty from me. The other thing you're going to get from me is access. So what you see on the screen that might be a little bit different from most presenters is my personal email address. That is my email address. That's not one of those like help at that silently redirects, right? Okay. If you email me, I will respond. And I'm giving you this email address because I realized that I volunteered to be vulnerable and tell all of you my business. You did not volunteer to tell everyone on this call all of your business, right? So if you have a question that you don't feel comfortable asking in front of everyone, it requires a lot of context, you don't feel like it's appropriate for this space, I want you to write down my email address right now. It's Katrina at three, like the number, ears, like the ones on your head, media.com. Okay. Do not hesitate. But here's what I want to ask of you. If you're willing, I really want you to be brave. You do not have to come off mute. You do not have to get on camera to ask a question. Like I said, the chat is going to be our primary way of communicating today. And the reason why I want to ask you to be brave is because I know if you have this question, there's probably 5 other people who have a question, or 6 other people who are going to watch this replay and be like, I'm so glad that someone asked that question. All right. So if you're willing, be brave, ask the question. If you got to the third E in 3 ears and I switched the slide on you, don't worry, I put it on this one too. All right, so here's how I built the agenda, because honestly, I think I could talk about everything I think could be covered in this bucket for probably a day, like a solid day, but I'm not going to nerd out on you that hard because we don't all have that time to spend together. What we do have is an hour. And what I did is I did a lot of research. I get asked questions about job search all the time. I'm everyone's favorite resume buddy. Okay. If you say recruiting, you know how it is. But I didn't want to move based off just what I thought was important. What I did is I went out and found some surveys. I went into the anonymous boards, the Reddits, the conversations where people are having and really talking about what's happening and where they're struggling in their job search. And then, of course, I asked LLMs. I went to the Chat GPT, Gemini, and Claude, and I asked them what questions people ask them about their job search. I pulled all of that research together and I found some trends and really categories of where these questions fall. And that's how I determined today's agenda. So we're going to go through each of these and really the categories of questions, why I think people are struggling with this so much. And then I have a practical, applicable checklist or something for you about every one of these that you can take back to your students to say, go do this right now, or you should know this. It will help them stay protected from identity theft, from being marked as fraudulent candidates, and really understanding how to represent themselves online, which I know are all things that you're probably talking about a lot as students are searching more. All right. If you have questions, comments, even if you're like, hell yeah, you can type that in the chat. I want this to feel like a conversation. You do not have to have some perfectly formulated question just to get into the chat and have a conversation. All right, let's jump right in. So let's start with the applicant tracking system. So, from my POV, the applicant tracking system is like the Bigfoot of recruiting. Okay. I think we're on the same page about this one, okay? Right? So, we have this like the lore of the ATS. Am I getting auto rejected? Is there a person? How do we do this? What is, right? And I feel like the ATS is basically lore for everyone except recruiters. There's nothing I have read more rumors about or fake headlines. And frankly, I think the AI and all of those headlines has only made that lore even worse because it makes us believe that the machine is just doing all of these things. And again, it creates the illusion of a barrier to entry. And a lot of the questions I think are just centered around people's insecurity with the job search in general because they don't know what works, especially entry level and students. Like they don't have a really good grasp of like, this is what I should do, this is what I should not do. And it leads them to accepting a lot of it bad advice, but also asking questions like this. They're asking, does the AI automatically reject me if I'm not a match? If I use AI, if I use ChatGPT to write my resume, will the company's AI detect it? And then we start getting into what I call the games. They're trying to game the system. They're adding keywords. They're looking for some way to win. Again, I think this goes back to an emotion underneath all of this, right? And the emotion is I'm scared. And so I want to answer all of these really quickly, and then I'm going to talk about what's happening on the other side with this fear. Okay. So, does the AI automatically reject me if I am not a match? No. All right. Unless there are standards set up on their side. For example, you must say yes to this question or you do not move forward. If you do not say no to this question, we cannot move you forward. That's the smartest any of this technology has gotten. Okay. There is no auto reject that happens without a human behind the scenes who says, these are the reasons why I am going to reject this person. And they are all simple yes no questions, often logistical questions, because they haven't really understood the role well enough to be able to say what their yes no are in regards to requirements. So they pick things like geo, where do you live? Or how far do you live away from this location kind of things. That's really the sophistication of any automatic rejection. The next part about the AI resume. This is where we're starting to get into territory where even 6 months ago, we were telling and encouraging everyone to use AI to optimize their resume. And now we're reaching a place where we've crossed the line. We are over optimizing. And when we over optimize, the AI is now being coded to detect that as fraud and to mark that candidate as fake. So we are walking a very thin line. And this last one is another reason why you might get marked as a fake is if we are doing that keyword loading. This is one of those ones where I posted about this on LinkedIn because I was telling a job seeker and they were like, are you serious? I have never once heard that. And I'm working with an ATS company who is actually doing this right now. So I know it's happening, but simultaneously we have all these people like, oh, people still do that? Of course they still do that because we tell them it's a game. We treat this like a game, and of course you're going to play the game. I want to go a little deeper on this fraudulent candidate topic because I think it's one of the areas where students are underinformed right now of what's happening with recruiters. Okay. This is worth a conversation, especially for people who feel like they're doing a lot of applying with no action. So, what's happening on the other side in the world of recruiting right now is that recruiters are getting 10x what they used to get as far as applicant volume. And that is not just a reaction of the market. Some portion of it is the fact that 1 million people got laid off last year, of course. But the other side of this is that now we do have tools that are facilitating easy apply. It used to just be a tool, Zip Recruiter, where you could click the button and right? It went out like a lotto machine or something. You just pull the handle. Now we have all these applicant bots that they can load their stuff up and the bot goes out and it can find jobs. And even just like giving you a short list is going to make people apply more because we've been told that if you apply more, you can get a job. So they keep applying. Now, think about it. If a recruiter has 500 resumes on their desk, what are they going to look for first? A way to make that pile smaller. They also have the factor that there are more fraudulent resumes. And that doesn't mean a bot applied. Fraudulent doesn't mean a bot applied. Fraudulent means that someone created a fake resume and submitted it for some reason. Some of those reasons are nefarious, others are not. I have read about cases where the North Korean government was creating identities to hack into the largest organizations, and they were hired at multiple high-level, big Fortune 100 companies. That's where this fear is trickling down. Do I think this is happening at your average manufacturing company? No. Are they still getting more? Yes. And they're using this as a reason that they can shrink the pile. And there are a couple of things. So the ATS company, because they want to keep their customer, they're creating technology that helps people shrink the pile. Some of those technologies, this is what's happening behind the scenes. It's not sophisticated, but it's methodology. Let's start with those job keywords. So for a long time, the job keywords were a way to create a match, right? We had a score that was based off of those keywords being a one-to-one match because the technology wasn't smart enough to say, I think you mean this. That's why we used that before. Now, what's happening is tools like Ashby and Lever, those are two ATS systems that are very popular. What it does is it parses all the resumes so they look the same. Does that make sense to everybody? Type yes in the chat if you understand what I mean when I say parsing all the resumes to look the same. So basically, perfect. I just want to make sure because I know parsing and it means that I can look at everybody side by side and know that and compare them equally. At least that's the philosophy here. But what happens is if you have all that context in white text, it means that your beautiful one-page resume is now 18 pages long because it took all of those keywords and just plopped them in a list. It can make your resume ugly, and that will get flagged, right? They're also looking at conversation patterns. If I take the job post and paste it in that white text at the bottom, that's going to be a conversational flag, meaning I don't think this is a real match. I think they're trying to trick me from the machine. The next one is funky formatting. All right. Whenever I talk to students, I'm like, look, I want your resume to be as boring as possible. No columns. None. Zero. All right. And if it's hard to format, get rid of it. Keep it as simple as possible. No tables, no columns. Because again, that parsing system, it just creates inconsistency. And these tools, as much as they call them AI and everyone's, oh, they're so smart, they're going to they're going to take jobs. We all know AI is not that smart. All right. It's just not that smart. And I want you to make sure that we are not giving them templates that will get them flagged as a fake when they're not. The next one is about the LLM resume. All right. So this one, I know we're going to use AI no matter what. So I started to kind of like look into the research to try to figure out how you create something unique, but you can still use AI. And basically what they said is like at least 20% of it has to be highly unique. So if we need to set a baseline, about 20% of the content on the page, 1/4 of the page needs to be something that came out of your brain and was written down on a piece of paper. So this tool, what's happening here is there's a tool called Sapling. And what it is it gets merged with the ATS and it's used often for like testing, pre-employment testing to like test your skills, test your personality. Now they've added something called a human probability score. So if it directly looks like a chat GPT, it's not that they're going to say this one is fake. It's just going to give it a really low score. And again, we got to know how the recruiters are working. Big pile. What's the first thing I'm going to do? Sort by score so that I'm working on the best ones first, or at least what the machine tells me are the best. So at a minimum, my advice is rewrite the bullets, whatever draft you get. I want you to rewrite all the bullets. And the other thing that I always tell students to do, numbers, 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 scope and scale. How much, how many? You never worked on a team. You worked on a team of 4 over a 4-week period to complete 6 deliverables. Okay. I gotta see scale. Next, the AI generated headshots. Please. No. That's all I'm going to say. No. No. Because here's why. Again, it's not about getting flagged on some creepy backend system. This is the problem. If you make it past barrier 1, okay? And here I am, the recruiter. I have 50 resumes, let's say, and I now am taking 50 to 25. I go on your LinkedIn profile just to make sure you're real. See if you've got your stuff together. And there's a fake picture. And I can tell it's fake because the skin's perfect and the glow is right here and the hairs. You know what I'm talking about, right? It just looks fake. Instantly, my brain's going to say, okay, pass. Because it's our responsibility to make the big pile smaller. Don't do things that make it easy for people to say, this one isn't worth doing more of. All right. Let's move on to ghosting. I'm going to keep moving through each of these. I love it, Rachel. Do you find companies of all sizes and industries using these ATSs? Absolutely. Okay. So not necessarily Ashby and Lever. There are many, many different applicant tracking systems, but Rachel, I will tell you right now, every single applicant tracking system is selling some kind of fraud detection system right now. All of them. Funny enough, actually, Greenhouse, one of the biggest applicant tracking systems in the country, announced their fraud detection tool today. It's one of those like difference features that people are looking for if they're looking to make a change right now. What I'm hearing from the recruiters is, I need a tool that uses AI. And this feels like AI. It's not actually AI, but it feels like AI. And that's one of the reasons why they're considering it, but also because they're buried under applicants right now. I love that question. Excellent question. All right. I think ghosting falls into like the tangential category right next to the applicant tracking system. It is also the lore. And I get it, because when you spend that much time working on something and you hear nothing, of course, you're going to start wondering if it's you and what you're doing. And a lot of the questions I'm hearing, and I would love if you type yes in the chat if these are the same kind of questions that you're hearing, is I applied to 50 and I heard nothing. What's wrong with my resume? Of course, something is wrong with me if I'm not hearing back from all these companies I'm applying to. How often is too often to follow up? Like, well, I applied. Okay, yep. I applied in March and they responded April 1st. Can I send a message 2 weeks later? Like we're doing some kind of dance, right? Or is this job post real? This question is starting to come up a little bit more for me, because I'm a job post expert. So of course people are like, but how about this one, right? I should create an LLM at this point to help people figure out which ones are fake and real. Let me answer each of these before we move on to, because I want to tell you about the signals that a job post is fake. Because statistically, I found a crazy research report in preparation for this conversation. And it was a real statistical analysis of over 90,000 jobs that were currently posted. I know the beauty of AI and all the tools available to us. Are you ready for this? 21% were fake. Okay. 21. And that is not Glassdoor making up data. That is not funded by a company who makes money off of job ads, okay? Because those are the people who are going to tell you there's no fake jobs. I really need you to start talking to students about this because I actually think it's going to become one of the bigger identity theft holes for them as we get through the next 6 to 12 months and people feel, I'll say it, desperate, right? We get to that point where people are panicking. So, number one, what's wrong with my resume? Nothing is wrong with your resume. Well, there might be something wrong with your resume, but it might not be, right? That's not the first answer. The first answer is about 21% of jobs are not real. Let's talk about your strategy of how you're finding jobs. How often is too often to follow up? I say at least a week. 1 week between each follow-up because that's a normal business cycle. If something is important to me, I'll get to it this week, right? We've all said that before. So I use that same philosophy and I'll even say like, if this is a high priority, right? We expect it to be done within a week. Or ask somebody, how often is too often to follow up with you about this interview? That's a great question at the end of an interview. The last one, is this job posting real? Let's talk about it. So we know that we're getting a lot more fakes. So I want to give you a really quick audit that I do. People send me fake job postings all the time. I do not base it off of their awful language because we all know job posting, most of them are awful. So instead, I use actual methodology, and this is the methodology that I use for these jobs. Number one, and Mitchell just shared in the chat, when I've applied to positions in the past, I refuse to answer an application that they ask for my social security. That should be number one on here. This did not make the list, but I'm confident all of you are saying these things. I'm not so sure we're giving these pieces of advice. The first one is that you should always go to the careers site and make sure the job is posted on their website. Here's why. Those applicant tracking systems are a one-way system, meaning if I upload a job and I hit post, it gets distributed to 250 different job boards, and I have no way to say, take it back. Wait, pull that down. I already hired that person. I can't do that. There's no way to do that. So I always tell people, I do not recommend you apply to jobs on job boards. I only recommend you go to their website and apply right there. You find jobs on job boards like a Google search. You apply to jobs on the website. You're going to verify the company. Now, my favorite way to do that is we do not click links, right? We search the name and the word reviews. Glassdoor reviews. That was an awful example. Manufacturing reviews, threeearsmedia reviews, whatever the company name is in the email signature or on the job posting, just search that and reviews. Something should come up if they are a legitimate company. You haven't made it this far into the 2020s without having a strategy around that. You're going to verify the contact information. So I will search first and last name and the company name. So Katrina Kibben, 3 Ears Media. And searching that full phrase. If no one comes up on LinkedIn, that's probably not a real job. Very few recruiters have no LinkedIn presence. And the last piece is the gut check. All right. And I have to put this here because I know that's fluffy science, but hear me out. If you're asking me, something smells fishy. And I think part of our responsibility to job seekers, and I say this as a collective, I know it's all of your job, but it becomes part of my job pretty often, is that I think it's also part of our responsibility to remind them that even in this AI world, you should always trust your gut. Your gut matters. If you have instincts about something, I think that's the best job search tool you have. Your instincts. Okay? And this last section before we chat a little bit and I can answer all of your questions is about social media. Because we just talked about job discovery. We talked about those profile pictures validating. And I also know that a lot of students are asking the eternal social media question, or really the networking question, which is, how do I network if I don't know anybody? Am I supposed to have a LinkedIn if I didn't have a job? Do I have to have a LinkedIn? Right? And really, I think what they're asking is like, I want a tool that makes my life easier. I mean, does anybody remember when social media was like the cool way to get a job? You would like find the person and post a picture of yourself doing something kooky, or like find them and send cookies, right? That was like the cool thing when I back in the day when I had one of those cool job titles, right? So, Mary, you're going to be my first question. Melissa, will you prompt me to answer that question first when we get back here? So, let's talk a little bit about social media, and then we're going to get to Mary's question and answering any other questions that have come up while we're talking. So in this category, I'm getting a lot of the like, is quick apply a waste of time? And then, does anybody else get this? Where someone's like, well, someone on Reddit said, like, we don't even share their names. We maybe shouldn't take advice from anonymous guests. All right. So first, let me just answer that one before I even read all of it. People, oh, recruiters only look at these kinds of people. No, recruiters look at what they get. Because truly, we have to, again, remember a recruiter is trying to find the right person. And we don't get a lot of referrals. No matter what people say, referrals are just not that common. It's a lot of work to get someone to refer someone else who's actually qualified. And that's a whole different presentation. But truly, you should always apply. If you think you're qualified, please apply. I tell anyone who asks me, if you think you are 70% or more qualified, you should absolutely apply to that job. No questions asked. The next one, should I send a video resume to stand out, or does that make it harder for the AI to screen me? The answer is follow the instructions. I feel like my mother when I say that. My mom was a military officer, and so a lot of her advice was rather abrupt and very, very clear. And this is the kind of advice that she would give. Follow the instructions. Whatever they tell you to do that. You do not stand out by not following the instructions. And if you do stand out, you stand out in the worst way. Wrong way to stand out. And the last one, do I really need to use LinkedIn to get an entry-level job? Yes, because of the validation. Okay, that recruiter may never look at your posting, or they may never look at your LinkedIn profile. But if they do, it better be right. Okay? And here, no, it does not need to be perfect. It does not need to have all of the things. Okay? But it must have the following items. All right? The number one thing it has to have is the header photo, and it cannot be a random generic LinkedIn thing. My personal advice is that you actually put your contact information in the header photo. Everyone knows how to use Canva. Find the template for the LinkedIn header and literally say, you can contact me here. As most of you know, LinkedIn, you have to pay to contact people over a certain limit if you're not connected. Why not just give them your contact information so that they don't have to pay to contact you? You're helping them. Just put the contact information right there. The next one is your headline. The headline, by the way, when I'm referring to that, is the words right under your name. In that slot, I want you to put the job title you want. If you do not have a job, I want the job title they want to have. If you are not sure which one, if your student is like, well, is it a marketing associate or an entry-level marketing one, which is an awful job title, but neither here nor there, right? Is it marketing manager or marketing associate? I want you to use Google Trends, trends.google.com, and you can literally compare search volume right there. I will show that to you if you would like. Just put in the chat, I want to see Google Trends, and I can demo that for us before we wrap up. Next, I need the about section. All right. So in this about section, I tell students to just tell me what you want. I am looking for a job where I get to do this every day. A little bit of personality if you're feeling creative. It is not a creativity contest. Again, if I'm a recruiter and I'm looking at this and I know you are an entry-level candidate, I'm scanning at best. If you have writing talent and you want to tell some story, go for it. I have all the tools to do that and an outline for all of you. I'm not going to go into that right now, but at a minimum, tell me what you want and how to contact you. Okay. And the last piece is that we need some activity. You got to post. It is unacceptable to have your last post be 2 months ago. It's unacceptable. All right. Read something, write something. You have opinions, share them. I'll tell you right now, I will not connect with anyone who has not posted recently. I'll follow you. I'll let you follow me, but I will not connect with you because it gives you access to all my connections. Okay? Post something. If you have no work history, you can post going to school as a student as part of your work history. You can talk about the classes we are taking, right? Create activity. Again, it is just a signal to show that you are real. Your LinkedIn is a marketing version of your resume. It is not a copy and paste. Let me say that one more time, because this was advice that I was given for a really long time, and I've heard other people give it recently. Your LinkedIn is not a copy and paste of your resume. It is the marketing version. It is how you market your skills, talents, and discoverability, meaning how people find you on the internet. Okay? So we're updating this picture right here. Put your contact information. I'm allowed to have a witty one-liner because I'm not trying to be found by people recruiting me. My job title right here, because LinkedIn isn't that smart. And if I type in some keywords and I want to find you, I should be able to find you. This is the number one way people find you. No AI headshots, real people, real faces. You're allowed to make the color if you really want to. It'll make you stand out. Some kind of about that says, I'm a real person and I want a job, and some kind of work history. Okay. And if we're not connected, Melissa's going to put that link over in the chat. We should be. Okay. Now, back to the slides. You will get a copy of all of these. You're going to get a copy of this recording. I'm going to provide everything. But before we get to our Q&A, I want to say this explicitly. Let's be real friends. Melissa just popped my LinkedIn in the chat. If we are not connected yet, I would absolutely love that because I share advice like this all the time. And if you really want to know what's happening in the world of recruiting, I literally write a blog about it every single week. And so that is a great way to just get an insider look into what is most important to recruiters right now. The post I wrote today, and I did not time this, is about, is your resume being flagged as fraud? So if you wanted to share some of those, you can get the long version right over on the blog. I also have a recruitment marketing library. And I wanted to point this out because I try to give as much away for free as possible. I think it's just important that we all try to help. So if you go to recruitmentmarketinglibrary.com or you Google Recruitment Marketing Library by 3earsmedia, you will find it. You can search job search and it will literally give you every single post I have ever written about job search. Every single one. All right. The most popular and one that might be interesting to all of you, and Melissa, don't worry, I will put this in the chat, is how to sell yourself in an interview. It's the 3 most common questions that are asked during the interview with advice on how to answer them. Tactics for making impressions and advice from real recruiters on showing up in the interview. Like I said, I love to help people find jobs because no one gets to talk to recruiters as much as I do, and I know it helps. And last but not least, we have all of it packaged in one place, and that is for sale only because for a convenience. All right. So on the last slide, when you get a copy of this, it will have this QR code. It's an $8 access to every single thing I've ever done, every single template, every single tool that we've ever done in job search, all in one place. So you can search and open each window, or you can just buy access and I'll put it all in one place for you. But regardless, I want you to take that email address and make sure that you have it. Because if you run into any issues, we're real friends now. You just spent a whole hour learning with me, and I'm always happy to help. All right. And of course, if you're ever looking for someone to come and speak to your students about their job search, virtually or in person, you know where to find me. I am the only Katrina Kibben in the world. So if you spell my name right, you'll find me. If you spell my name wrong, you'll find a priest for the U.S. House of Representatives. You will be 100% confident you are in the wrong place. All right. So on that note, I know we already had a couple of questions come in. If you're scribbling down any other questions, please go ahead and share them now, because this is your time. This is our time to make sure that our questions get answered. Anything you came here really hoping to learn, let's make sure we cover it now. And remember too, I'm a job post writing expert, so I'm always happy to talk about job postings more. The first question I see here, oh, and we're going to get to Google Trends. Welcome to ADHD Cat. I get really excited about this part. So the first question, I remember the days of applying to jobs that didn't list the company. It was my understanding to avoid a ton of resumes or to check if current employees were looking for another job. All right. So this is recruit, in my experience. I'm not saying all the time, but in my experience, this is what I would call recruiting agency BS. So agencies who get hired to recruit for roles, there's usually about 15 agencies who are all trying to fill that role. And so they will post jobs without a company name on it because they don't want you to direct apply. If you direct apply, they don't make any money. They want you to apply to them and be in their database so that they can present you as a candidate. And when they present you as a candidate, they get 1/3 of your salary. Now, that sounds like, ooh, they're my new friend. They can help me get a job. But remember, the company doesn't actually want to pay an extra 1/3 of your salary to find you. In their dream world, they're going to find you. They're going to get your application. And they will show preference for people who didn't come through that path unless you are an extraordinary candidate. All right? Does that answer that question? Perfect. The next one, does my advice change at all if you're advising international students? What about different disciplines, business versus tech versus nonprofits? I would say that internationally, what I have seen, and I've worked a lot in Asia Pac and Europe, as well as here in the United States. And 100% my advice would be entirely different if I was preparing a candidate to apply to a job in the APAC region, because they have a 100% different work culture than we do. Their resumes are completely different. Thank you, Maggie. Advice, adapted question. We're talking about international students looking for jobs in the US. All right. So what I would suggest specifically for those international students, I would say that a lot, probably where they have the biggest opportunity, the only place where my advice would change a little bit more is on LinkedIn. I want a little bit more of the story. You have a story to tell. And we also know that with international students, the very first question you're going to get from an employer is about your employment status. Do you need support, visa? Do you need this kind of support? What kind of employment, whatever? That's going to be the first question any recruiter is going to ask, specifically when they have an international application. So I would make that part really, really clear, because that's a deal breaker. And I think big picture is that regardless of the discipline, regardless of where you're from, any of that, if there's a deal breaker that you know exists, that you think is standing between you and a job, I say name it. And that's where people are like, right? No, don't till the 5th interview to name something you know is a deal breaker. That's an easy way to get your hopes up just to land in the exact same place. You can't make someone, this is something you can say to students on my behalf. You can't make someone love you so much that they can get past a deal breaker. A deal breaker is a deal breaker. Okay? So name it. Always name it. And then this last part I wanted to address the different disciplines, I think there's a lot of perception that with different industries at different levels, I'll need a different strategy. That's not true. Okay. I do not believe that because they're all using the same technology. They think they are special butterflies. Every company thinks they're a special butterfly. They are not. They're all using, I mean, over 90%, I want to say, are all using the same technology to hire right now. Okay. So knowing that, I think we need to be strategically smart about just doing the stuff we know works and not doing the stuff that we know might get us flagged. All right. I'm going to open up Google Trends. I'm also going to give you a second. If you do have any other questions that you want to ask, go for it. And then we will do this. Let me close some windows because if anyone else uses Zoom to share while you're presenting, you know that it really loves to mess with you when you're doing something live. So I will just open every single window before I show you anything. All right. I love seeing the questions. Thank you all. Makes it a lot more fun. I love this answer from Nancy. If anyone else is reading in the chat about seeking connection, global companies, I love that tip. Kind of expanding your access, expand the purview of options. I love all of this advice. And for those of you who are watching this recording, it was just recommending that looking for people who you have a deep connection with or global companies might be a great option for those international students. The next question from Mary before I share my screen for Google Trends. Can you expand on your recommendation of having students use LinkedIn as part of their initial job search? Does this apply for internships? 100%. All right. So I absolutely believe that we should be using LinkedIn because remember, recruiters, they're using LinkedIn for most of their kind of like mid to senior level roles. So automatically they usually start there, not because they think they're going to find all the best candidates, but because in their brains, that's how you're supposed to do it. So they're always going to go back there and look at LinkedIn. And I think it's also a way to capture what's happening in an internship in real time in a business setting, right? I think one of the big mistakes that people make is they go do work, but they don't write down what they're doing as they do it. And so LinkedIn is a great note taker for that. All right, next, one more question from Maggie, because I just saw it. If you have any insight on this, I have so many students asking how they can know if a job is open to them. Many job postings don't mention sponsorship, so they go through the whole application and then they get the auto reject email based on that yes or no. So how can we help them with giving themselves the best chances? So clarification, are we talking like I got an interview and then I get the rejection at the end? Or are we talking like I hit apply? We want to avoid the whole application or avoid the, okay. So we want to avoid applying. That one's hard. So I think this is a case where we're going to Google, does this company offer sponsorship? I know that's a stupid answer, but sometimes we forget that first step of like asking the internet. The beauty is that we do have those, the chat GPTs and different models where we can now say, is there anything available that says they do or do not do this? That will be helpful. And here's why. LinkedIn, I don't know if any of you have alerts set up for your name, but I do. And now, I don't know if you've noticed, but all your LinkedIn posts come up as alerts because LinkedIn opened their posts up for LLMs to start scanning. And here's why that matters. If I post a job and I'm not accepting sponsorship, I'm probably going to say that in my post on LinkedIn, but not my actual job posting. Right? When I promote it and say, hey, I'm hiring a developer in da 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 to do blah, 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 I'll say no sponsorship available, but I don't say it in the job posting. So now we can ask AI to go out and source some of that information for us. And it can be really, really helpful. So my advice is use AI, make sure we're Googling, make sure we're asking. And then if there is any help section on the careers page, also go there. Because sometimes they have FAQs there. I would search all of those places. And then if you can, email someone and ask. But I would go ahead and apply anyway, unfortunately, right? You might get your next great job. All right. So we have a couple more minutes. Let me show everyone Google Trends. This is one of my favorite free tools, basically forever. All right. Because what it does is it says, this is more popular than this. The way I've always used it is teaching people about job titles, because all job titles are made up. And believe me, my inner 20-something is very, very upset about that, because I chased job titles the whole way up my career ladder. It was disappointing. My point being, your students should not get attached to job titles. They should get attached to common phrases and being able to find jobs where they can do the work they want to do, because all job titles are made up. So I was using it for companies so that their job would be found. Because if your job title doesn't align to the work, no one even finds it. But for your students, this is about finding job titles you could search, right? So Google Trends is very helpful for this. So this is what the homepage looks like. It's trends, trends.google.com. What you're going to do is type the job title right here where it says explore. Typically, it's running real-time trends. That's why all of these random words are populating here. All right. So you're going to type in the job title you think you want. Hit explore, and it's going to pop up a page that looks like this. Well, technically, it's going to show just the first word you typed in. When it says, do you want the search term? Do you want the job title? Do you want this? The search term. Because what you're trying to distinguish right now is which words are searched the most. Because that's a good indicator of this job is popular. This job might still exist in 12 to 18 months, right? So you're going to type in all the variations here that you've been using, and this is what's going to pop up. Make sure it's set to the right region. Make sure it's set for more than 1 week. We want at least a year of data, and we want it to web search, okay? At a glance, it's going to give you a score of which one is most popular. So at a glance, if I'm picking that title for LinkedIn, you know, that little key, the title you want, I know it's going to be marketing manager. Look at that. Winner, right? Very clear winner. But here's the additional context that this tool can provide that's very, very helpful. It's going to show you other job titles. It's going to show you what questions people have about this work. It's going to give you what's on the rise, meaning, well, we're seeing flux here, a 90% increase in email marketing manager. Maybe you should take that class on email, right? These are good signals of what's happening in the world and what we expect to happen over the next 6 to 12 months. Because look, you can read all of those headlines if you want and just ride that roller coaster. But personally, I enjoy data. I do not. The news cycle about job search right now is toxic. So let's use data to help us make our decisions. If you want to see the alternative, you just click on the other keyword and it'll give you more of those top queries, more of the rising queries. Here's the other thing it's going to do is tell you if those keywords are not related to job search at all. My favorite is when I did this, I was searching customer service associate, and around the holidays, it's a very, very popular term because they're all searching customer service associate United, customer service associate Southwest, Verizon, right? So use this to get indicators about what jobs are popular, what skills you might need, and alternative job titles. But most of all, it's going to help us make the decision about what job title we want to put right here. I tell people, if you haven't gotten any views on your profile for 30 to 60 days, just change that. Just change that title right there. And you can go back to Google Trends, or you can ask AI to give you alternative job titles for someone who does this. And then just list out the work you want to do. Alternative job titles for someone who wants to do this. And then they just list the projects. Okay. All right. Well, time flies when you're having fun. And I'm watching people drop off. So I am open to stay like 2 more minutes. Hello, friendly face Rebecca. And anyone else, if you have a question, feel free to ask. I can stay for about 5 more minutes. And if you can't, no harm, no foul. I understand. Any questions before I run? And you can unmute yourself. You can ask in the chat. All right. I love it. Should the title only include job-related terms? So I'm guessing you're referring to this little section, and it should be, like I said, the job title you want. No adjectives, no descriptors, no buzzwords, no bingo, the job title you want. No, it does not say collaborator. It does not say team player. It does not say any of that. Because you know what? If I'm looking for someone, I don't open up the internet and type in collaborator. I type in marketing manager, right? I search the title of the person. So make sure that we're adding in those keywords. It literally is a job title match. Anybody else? All right. I'm going to wrap up. You will all get your access to slides and recordings and transcripts and anything else no later than the end of the week. I'm also going to clip this into multiple smaller videos. So you feel free to hand these out, give them to students directly. None of this is proprietary. I'm not going to like build up a wall and make it all secret because the whole point is helping people. But most of all, if you missed the beginning message, I want to say again, thank you so much. I deeply believe that it is a noble cause to dedicate your life to helping other people find work because work changes our lives. And I am so, so grateful there are people in my network who would do that and who would dedicate a whole hour of their life to listening to me talk just to be better at that. So thank you so, so much for being here. You will hear from me no later than the end of the week. Tara, welcome, welcome. So happy to see you here. And again, if anybody needs anything, you never hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to help. All right. Have a wonderful day. Stay warm if you're in the cold places. And I will talk to all of you very soon. Thank you. Thank you.